The other thing that I experimented with, the power of positive visualization. You ever do it?
I'm visualising a bottle of Chardonnay now as we speak. Very positive.
Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan are not your average podcast hosts. They're the superheroes of real-life experiences and witty insights. They've got more stories than a library, more rawness than a sushi train, more wisdom than a fortune cookie factory, and are way more real than this voiceover. So strap yourself in, people. Jack and Rahl are keeping it real.
Hey, Rahl,
Yes.
I've never met a microphone I've not loved.
I've never met a four I didn't like.
Met a what?
Metaphor.
Metaphor. Oh, I love it. As in a four, a golf swing?
It's in a metaphor. Metaphor. Never metaphor I didn't like.
Hey, speaking of meta, 20 years. Facebook the other day.
Oh,
It's
really?
been around for 20 years.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
You know how long PowerPoint's been around?
Ooh, 40 years?
35.
There was close.
This was not in the script. Why are we talking about it?
But we are structured, not scripted, right?
We are.
I love
So it's like
that.
that's got a bit of a James Bond feel to it, hasn't it? Structured, not scripted.
Go Octopussy. Hey, you had a really good question.
I did. Are we going to introduce what we're talking about today? We'll go straight into the questions.
I've never met a microphone I didn't love because we're talking today about
Public speaking.
speaking publicly.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. We get asked a lot, but we've had a question. Now, this is a really interesting question. Someone asked us what our followers are called. So, we, like Taylor Swift, called Swifties, and Kylie Minogue's lovers, that her followers are called lovers.
I didn't know that.
Annabelle Crabb and Lee Sales, their podcast Chat 10, they're called Chatters. So, I thought that was a good. Well, I've got a few ideas, but I'm not going to say it. I reckon we crowd source. Do you crowd surf or do you crowd source?
We do now. Let's do that. So you want our followers to come up with a great name that we could refer to them as?
Yes.
They
Instead
would very
of
proudly
saying,
own.
hey, listeners,
Yeah, or
we
followers.
could call you, hey,
Realsters or
lovers, but not lovers because that's
Lovers.
Kylie's got that, or Swifters because that wouldn't make any sense.
hang on, Taylor Swift, only artist ever to gross $1 billion from her latest global tour.
That's amazing. She's
Pretty
amazing.
cool. She is amazing.
Like we could do a whole podcast on her.
Like her or not, she's
I suggested to do a
successful.
podcast on Kylie and you told me to
Padam or what is it?
shut up.
Shut up. Enough of
Anyway,
Kylie,
I know
right?
you're not a Kylie fan. Can you just like Kylie?
I think she's amazing, but
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan. Anyway, what should we be called?
Send us in. Let
What
us
should
know
followers be called?
what would you want to be called if we don't want to call you as followers or listeners or watchers. Let us know.
All right.
And we will announce that in, what do you reckon, 2 weeks? Give people 2 weeks?
Yeah, give
2
them
weeks.
a couple of weeks to
Couple
come
of
up
weeks.
with a great name.
And if you don't come up with a great name,
we will.
We will.
We'll name you instead. That could be dangerous.
So public speaking. Most people fear death over public speaking. That's
true.
Apparently.
True. Yep. There's been a global study. 75% of people would rather die than speak publicly. That's
Which is
pretty
crazy,
amazing.
isn't it?
Yeah,
I always love the Jerry Seinfeld quote when he talks about that most people would prefer to be dead than speaking. And he went, so you're at a funeral and you'd prefer to be the person in the casket than the one doing the eulogy.
No, I don't think so.
No. And it is like... So, but
But
that
it is a
research,
fear.
It's a fear. And
It's
that,
a
I mean,
real
that
fear.
research that was only recently,
Last
wasn't
year.
it? Yeah. Okay.
2023.
So it's a fear. So we want to talk about public speaking and we want to... I think the gist, if you want a little bit of a gist of what we're going to talk about, is it's a real thing. Most people have a fear of public speaking or get nervous.
Correct.
Don't sort of say, well, I'm not going to speak because I get nervous because it's normal. But we also want to give you some ideas and tips to how to get over it or through
Absolutely.
it.
And I'm going to do a spoiler alert and speak up really quickly about the tip that is the most obvious, which is probably the one people want to hear least, which is, like anything, the more you do, the better you get.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
every opportunity, speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And
How
I
we
think
got
that's,
good, right?
Yeah.
Well, we think we're good.
But it
how we got
is. It's
comfortable.
like the only way you get better at something and less nervous is doing it more and more. Now, I'm a professional speaker. I don't get I would say I don't get nervous when I speak now, but there's still some times where I do, and it's a big
That's a good
occasion.
thing. It's not a
but
bad
it's only
thing.
because I'm been doing it professionally for nearly 20 years.
And surely you say nerves, I say adrenaline.
Yes, and I think that's a good way to reframe it. So why do people, if all people get nervous, and they do,
Yep. Or excited.
why? Well, and let's just say nerves. It could be nerves, adrenaline. It could be,
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I'm not sure that we could just give a blanket answer to that. But when I think about where I started when it came to public speaking, I worked in radio, yeah?
Yep.
Great face for radio. You've all heard it before. And I was young. It's
an oldie but a goodie. We'll keep saying
it's a bit
it.
like me, an oldie but a goodie. I was 19 when I started working in radio. I was on midnight to dawns. No one listens to midnight to dawns, yeah? Or very few. They're shift workers or they're the people who have, sleeping issues, the whole bit. So a few nutters out there as well. They became my friends. But the whole point is that when you work in radio, everything is about how you sound. Yeah. So you learn very quickly how you sound.
Right.
And one of the best things, and I talk about feedback a lot, feedback's a gift, I talk about it all the time in my coaching practice. One of the things everyone has to do in radio, even the very polished, most professional, long-time experienced radio announcers, is you actually have to play back your sound check or your air check, which is everybody that is on radio gets recorded. It's an automatic machine that records you, and you sit down with your boss the next day or the day after and you play back your shift, and it's just your pieces of voiceover, and you are critiqued and you are told, spoke too much, spoke too fast, that wasn't clear, you were gabbling.
What was your biggest challenge or
Have
your
a
biggest
guess.
feedback yet? Speaking too fast?
Nailed it. When I'm excited, I speak really quickly.
And that is a very normal thing,
you.
thing when people get get excited but also nervous, speak really quickly. And one of the things you should try to do when you're, maybe doing a presentation or such is just try to slow down a bit.
And think about it. The radio medium, there's no visual. So people can't lip read. All they hear is gabble.
Yeah.
So the importance of slowing down. So I used to stick a Post-it note on the desk, the on-air desk, with slow down to remind myself, because I'd see it and forget.
Yeah.
And I started to hear myself gabble. I'd started to then become more self-aware. Then I was able to correct. Then I was able to prevent and then stop.
Yeah. Well, it's not too dissimilar like doing these podcasts. I mean, we record them and we have to listen back to them like several times. And it has, like we've sort of, given each other feedback, and it's things like not umming and ahhing or interrupting. So you're constantly evolving by hearing yourself back and getting that.
Trying to get better and leaning into that, not being sensitive to that or precious.
Yeah. It is hard though, because most people hate the sound of their own voice.
That is true. How do you reduce nerves? You've been doing a lot of speaking over your lifetime.
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's a few things I speak to people about and I think the first is, and we often talk about self-awareness, just know that it's normal. It's actually normal. So don't beat yourself up. I think if you don't realise it's normal, you go into this downward spiral of going, all right, I'm about to speak. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting nervous. And I was like, oh my God, I hate speaking.
That little voice in your head again, or on your shoulder.
You're actually going downward spiral. If you say, okay, I'm about to speak, part of the process is I'm going to get nervous. So you just know that it's coming, it's coming. Nerves or adrenaline or whatever it's a physical condition. So you need to respond physically. So the two things I say
Interesting.
is breathe, and the deep breathing. So I do this, we not just sort of breathing, but you deep breath. When you take 4 seconds to breathe in
Through the nose.
hold it for 4,
Out through the mouth.
and slowly out for 4. And if you do that 4 times, right? So easy to remember. 4, 4, 4, 4. 4 breaths, 4 seconds in, hold it for 4, 4 seconds out, do it 4 times.
It relaxes you.
It relaxes you. It's
Wow.
amazing. You'd be amazed how that has an impact.
Breath work.
The other thing too is get physical. Go to if you can, go do a few star jumps, or it's like all the big muscles.
That's a whole nother episode.
Make sure you got a big support on them, support bra or support undies. But it's moving the big muscle groups and moving. Yeah. So sometimes when you see people nervous and their legs jittering,
I do
so
that.
you get that out.
Right.
Get
moving.
it out by move, and I think that is adrenaline. It might not be, but it's getting it out.
No, that's a nervous tension. That shaking a leg.
Yeah.
So the breath work. So breathing in, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 4, or holding for 4, exhaling for 4, moving around, doing some star
physical
jumps,
stuff, star
walking.
jumps, whatever.
I've seen some of some of the world's best presenters out the behind stage walking around, and they're in their own zone, right?
Yep.
And their own flow, and they are moving physically, moving arms.
Yeah.
Breathing.
They're probably doing 2 things there, and maybe this is the other thing. So they're physically moving.
Yeah.
Even some fans are the Amy Cuddy power pose or something but just move. But what they're probably doing, walking around, but being by themselves, is they're getting in state. So my mentor, Matt Church, always says state's more important than script.
Wow.
So don't get hung up on the fact that you might forget something or whatever. No one knows, no one cares.
No, that's true.
But the state, the energy you bring. So a lot of those speakers, professional speakers, will carve out time to get into the right state. So a lot of the time I do speaking, I might be in, for example, I work with a team and they're in the room for the whole day.
Yeah.
And they'll go, you can come in and, it might be good to hear what we're talking about just before. It was like, no, it will not be good.
No.
I'm going to sit in through boring strategy updates or whatever, because I know what's more important is my state.
Yeah.
So I will go, I'm just waiting outside and I will get in state.
You will prepare yourself.
That's what they're doing. And I guess that's another tip, that state's more important than script, and get into state. And so there's some things you can do just before, like literally just before. The other thing that I experimented with a few years ago was the power of positive visualization. Do you ever do it?
Often.
Oh, okay. Good.
I'm visualising a bottle of Chardonnay now as we speak. Very positive.
There seems to be a theme that you're always talking about alcohol.
I'm not even drinking that much, to be honest. Anyway,
relatively.
Maybe I want to. That's the point.
Relatively, yeah.
Tell me about this positive visualization.
Positive visual. A lot of professional sports people do it. So, like they visualize the game or the race, and they go through it. There's been a huge amount of research on how powerful this is, because when I first heard it, I went, oh God, that sounds a bit bloody, hoo-ha, whatever. So there was some research that they got 3 groups of people, and they were all basketballers or playing basketball. One group, they said practice shooting hoops. So they practice. The other group did no practice. They did nothing. And then the other group didn't practice but positive visualised shooting hoops. So the group that didn't do anything, didn't practice, no positive visualisation, didn't improve.
Wow.
But the group that only practiced and the group that only positive visualised improved the same amount.
Wow.
So there's heaps of research to show this work, and so professional athletes do it.
So I'm just positively visualising 3 billion people giving us a 5-star review.
Yeah, it might work. I like the way you flattered your eyelids when you did the positive visualization coming in. So let me share with you the first time I discovered the power of this myself. So it was about 5 years ago. I was doing the opening keynote of a 3-day conference. It was in Washington, DC.
Who might have been at that conference, Ral?
Who was at that conference?
Obama?
No, that was. Oh my God, that was
sorry,
a different
I was
conference.
name dropping again.
Oh my God, that was a different conference where I met Obama, but I was the opening keynote. It was for the International Association of Business Communicators.
Cool.
So these are all my peers,
yes,
really,
and professional
communicators. So that
no pressure.
So the stakes are higher because they're probably gonna.
They have expectations.
They have expectations. So I started to positive visualize, and all it was about 2 weeks out. I would, clearly I was practicing my speech because it was a big occasion, but the last thing before I went to bed. So I'd go to bed. In fact, I'd just do it in bed. So it was almost the last thing I was thinking of. I'd go through, I'm going to start with this story. I'm going to do this. They're going to laugh at my jokes. I'm going to get a standing ovation. You can positive visualize whatever you want, like 3 million.
Brad Pitt's going to race up and give me a massive pash at the end.
Oh, God. So I did it 2 weeks out, and then on the day of the presentation, I did it again just before. And I fully expected to get nervous, I did actually do some of the other things that I spoke about, like breathing and physically moving. And then afterwards I reflected, which I always reflect on any presentation I do.
Important.
And I went, I didn't get nervous. Why didn't I get nervous? Because this was potentially the biggest keynote speak I had ever done.
In front of a group of professional speakers.
So big.
Stakes high.
Why didn't I get nervous? And I'm thinking the only thing I did different was the positive visualization.
That is amazing.
So I think it works.
It works.
And, you may not do it every single time you present information, like if you're just speaking to your team, but if the consequences are high and it's important and you care about the outcome, it doesn't take long. It was like a minute, 30 seconds,
awesome.
a minute.
When you say you didn't get nervous, did you have any adrenaline? Were you a little bit hyped? I mean, was there any any feeling?
The adrenaline hit later. So what I find is I wasn't – sometimes you're a bit nervous before and you got the shakes a little bit. Sometimes you get off stage and that's when you're shaking.
Yeah, sure.
And
it's
that's adrenaline. It's a sort of
excitement.
the post.
Yeah.
So, but that's good.
Very good. Okay,
finished.
so the breathing's really important. Love that. The physical energy, get that energy out, get it happening, and then positive visualization. Imagine this is going to be a success. Imagine walking yourself through this particular public speaking project.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. I like that. I like that a lot. One of the things that we did talk about when we were at Harvard.
There we go again.
And we did some work around public speaking, particularly for women, was every time you speak, you are auditioning for leadership. I've never forgotten that line.
No, that it's one of those things. It's good, but it's almost scary. Like does it add more pressure on the fact that every time when you're speaking, you're auditioning for leadership? But it's true, because the reality is when you're speaking, if you're a good speaker, people will think you're a good leader. Now, you just mentioned Obama before, my mate, but when he ran for president, he's a great speaker, and I think there's just natural assumption that that he will make a good leader.
Way.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure. I hear what you're saying. How I took that line, and it wasn't about adding more pressure. It was absolutely you are perceived as you present.
Yeah.
So if you are nervous and don't know your content, then people are going to associate you with that. Whereas if you are calm or you've done the prep, or even if you are a little bit nervous and you say, I'm about to tell you something and I know the content really well, but I might be a bit shaky about it because I'm a bit excited. Whatever it is, you are actually setting the scene or for the perception of what you want people to think you are. And we are all leaders. You don't actually have to be in a leadership role to publicly present well, to be seen as a leader of that particular topic.
Yeah.
That's how
I've seen some people, and look, I wouldn't say do this all the time, but I've seen some people present like on a big stage, and they've sort of said, I'm really nervous doing this, and it sort of wins the audience over. Don't do that every time you're speaking.
No.
Like it can work, I think, once, but you definitely would not be wanting to start your talk. And people know it. And people, they're not there to see you fail.
No, they're all sitting there thinking, thank goodness that's not me up there, right? They'd rather be dead than be speaking. So they have empathy for you already.
Yeah.
That's never lost on me.
Yeah.
I'm the one standing up here giving the presentation or speaking to you publicly. I'm the courageous one here.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely commands some respect.
Yeah. And we often, even when we were planning for this this topic, we sort of talked about public speaking, like get over yourself. And I think what we mean by that is it's not about you.
It's awesome point.
Not about you. It's about the audience. You're there. If you're speaking to an audience, you're clearly there to present information. So it's helping them. So it's like, get out of your own way. It's not about you. No one's wanting you to fail.
No.
They're all just going, good on you that you're up there, and they're there to learn. So you need to do these things to make it a better experience
for others,
for the audience.
The more you do, the better you get. Now, you and I have both, sadly, but also in celebrations of life, delivered eulogies recently.
Yes.
Talk to me about the eulogy you delivered for your beautiful dad.
Yeah. So this was a couple of years ago, and it was, it was probably I talked about the Washington being my biggest gig, but this was probably the speech that was the most important to me. Now, so first of all, I wanted it to be on a dad's life.
Yeah.
There was lots of stories, as you could imagine.
Your father, my goodness.
And, my thing was just, I didn't want to do a, resume of his life, but it was stories.
Boring.
But what I did is I practiced that so much. So, the first time I wrote it up and I thought I'd run it past Mum.
Yeah.
And I couldn't finish it because it was the first time I'd said it, and I was just crying. And so
How was she? Sorry. What did she think when you read it to her the first time?
So my dad used to say bloody a lot, right? So I would go and say, Dad would go, bloody hell. And like Mum, and at the end, Mum's feedback was, there's a lot of bloodies in there. You're swearing a lot. I go, well, Mum, Dad said that. You know what my mum did? She asked the priest if it was
all
okay.
right.
And I think the priest said, yes, it's okay. So there was too many bloodies, but all the bloodies stayed in because that's how Dad spoke.
That's who he was.
What I had practiced it about 6 times. I didn't practice to remove emotion.
No.
I still wanted emotion in there, but I wanted to get through it because it's not about
you.
art, it's about them. And if I hadn't got through it, like, well, what good was that? Or blubbering and everyone just felt sorry for me. So
more.
and you've been really recent. Your brother, younger
just
brother,
recently
passed away.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and exactly the same thing, Raul. It was like what an honour to be able to deliver an eulogy to my brother, who was incredibly successful and well known. Where he created a brilliant business with his family, and I thought, there's 2 things I can do here. The first is share stories of him growing up that people didn't know about, because him growing up as my little brother is very different to the person that most people here know. So that's something that's a bit special. The second thing is make it light and fun. Yeah. Let's celebrate this awesome person's life, and let's actually think about the audience and give them some lightness and some laughter. And so to me, those were the measures of success. And like you, I had to get through it. Yeah. So I practiced. I also made sure that both my parents and his wife were happy with the content. They both, well, certainly my sister-in-law learned a few things because, this is stuff about him growing up. But the point was, do not be a blubbering mess. That's not going to serve anyone well. My job here is to get through this. So like you, I practiced.
Yeah. And I think that
it got easier.
Yeah, being the light and funny, that was, for your brother. But we need to take that more into business. Just because it's work and professional does not mean it cannot be funny or light or entertaining. And I truly believe that if you are entertaining people, you are educating. They're going to take more notice of what you're saying.
Shortest connection between 2 people? Humour.
Laughter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So bring in some humour
really
important. Whenever you're presenting.
I was doing a workshop the other day with a construction group, so mainly men, and these are all experts. I don't know that industry at all. I was talking to them about innovation, and I made sure right at the start I connected with them with humour so that they could see, this is going to actually be enjoyable. Don't know what this blonde girl's going to be talking about. However, she's funny, or she made me laugh, so straight away I feel a little bit better about this. Yeah. So it's putting the audience at ease. Right. I think you're right.
So let's get it. We've talked about a few things, but let's cover off some tips and techniques how we end our thing. So the first is practice.
Absolutely.
Like even our respective eulogies, it's practice. So know
your content.
Know your content.
Nothing worse.
And practice. And if this is all brand new content, then practice a lot.
Learn it.
Practice a lot. So absolutely. I spoke about getting scripts. States more important than script.
Yeah.
If you're doing a presentation, like maybe you just do a meeting at work, but you've got to present information. Give yourself time before that. Don't go running from meeting to meeting and rush in. So get into state.
Good point.
I think is important, especially if it's important.
Agree. You're auditioning for leadership, remember?
Yeah. I think you should invest in yourself. Do courses. There's so many courses out there.
Are there?
Yes.
Is any that come to mind, Ra? Any public speaking courses?
All right, I know you're going to take bloody the piss out of me for this. All right, I am running a public speaking course.
What a coincidence. And here we are doing a conversation on public speaking.
Don't listen to her. This was not planned. But, you don't have to do my course,
does
although
great courses.
my course is the best.
Your course is
anyway,
an
do a
awesome
course. Invest in, public speaking is important.
Very important.
Really important. We do courses on Excel and Word, do courses on public speaking. So details of that will be in the show notes. The other thing is develop a third eye. And what I mean by that is every time you watch someone present, look at what they're doing.
Study them.
And learn,
Study them.
oh, wow, that was really good. I could do that. Just pinch some of the stuff they do if it's working with you
Study
and your
them.
style.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I did that with Al Gore. Remember he was doing a global tour.
The Inconvenient Truth?
On the Inconvenient Truth, climate action,
Yeah.
way back then. And I remember sitting front row and watching him and being absolutely compelled. And I've never forgotten it. And he did two things, which I've tried to bring into any of the public speaking I do. The first thing, he used the power of the pause. And he used that for such effect. If he wanted to hold you on something or he wanted something to be retained, he would absolutely stop midway. And, of course, you're looking at him and you're willing him to go on so you remember it. And the second thing was he would repeat key information again and again.
Yeah.
And I thought those tips were awesome.
Yeah.
You
I
learn
did
a
a
lot.
similar thing when I saw Jerry Seinfeld live a few years ago, and he's on this big stage and there's literally a bar stool and a microphone, and I'm thinking, how is he going to fill that whole stage? And what he does really well is his exaggeration of movements and acting stories out.
Animated.
And part of me that thought, that's – and I'd done a few speaking courses before and got feedback that I need to be more animated. The bigger the stage, the more animated you need to be. And so I'd sort of got that feedback. But when I saw Jerry Seinfeld do it, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to take that on. So again, developing your third eye.
That's a
Whoever
great
you're
one.
presenting,
Great
look
one.
at what are they doing that is good that you could adopt.
Use.
Use humour. We spoke about
Love
to just try to get the audience laughing
Not hard.
straight early, but also if
Self-deprecating.
you laugh, that it's amazing if you have a little bit of a laugh that gets
Infectious.
rid of any nerves.
Infectious.
I did about 4 years ago. I did a comedy course.
That was so smart.
Yeah, and two reasons. It was and I talk about doing a course. You can do different courses. I mean, I did that course to be a better
Public
speaker.
speaker, yeah, it
Because
was a
I
comedy
know
course.
there's a structure and framework to create a story.
Yeah.
But there's also a structure and framework to create a joke. So I wanted to learn that. So my speaking gets different. So you might do Toastmasters or whatever, do different things to do a course. And I think also every time you present, and this is every time, reflect on what worked, what didn't, or what would you do differently.
Yeah, spot on.
Most people only do that when it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So they come out and go, oh my God, that was terrible, and I'm not doing that again. 99% of the time you've presented before, it's worked. So what worked? And
Yes,
so when I
remind
did
yourself.
Washington, it was like, wow, that positive visualization really worked, or that breathing really worked, or getting myself 15 minutes off before I present really worked. Figure out what works for you. So reflect on that every
really
time
important.
you present.
I'm coaching a number of people, but one person who comes to mind right now is an exec in New Zealand in banking, very, very senior, and she regularly presents and she will write out what she needs to say. She will send it to me and then she'll say, can we do a coaching session on this?
Yeah.
And the whole point of that isn't really for me to critique her. It's so she can practice. And practice to an audience, knowing that I will give her some feedback. And so then again, it's familiar.
Yeah,
And she nails it every time.
Practicing out loud is important,
Very
and then
important.
practicing in front of someone else. Again, if it's you're not doing this every single time,
No.
but investing and investing in a coach, so you can do my course and
Or you could be coached by me. Oh, my
plug.
goodness, aren't you
All
fair?
right, we've got to stop this episode before we go on.
Can we just do a
spruiking
quick roundup of the tips again? Because
we can.
public speaking is so important. So number one, content
know your content and practice it.
Number two,
Do a course, any course.
do you know of any good ones, Ron?
I know some great ones in the show notes.
Number three, develop a third eye. I'd not heard that before.
Yeah.
That's an awesome one. I understand the context of it or the concept,
Yeah.
but develop a third eye. Look at what other people are doing that are doing it well and take that information. Number four,
Use humour. Use humour to connect and put the audience and yourself at ease.
and finally, but
Just
certainly
reflect. Just
very
reflect.
importantly.
What worked, what didn't, what would you do differently?
And just start and
and
keep
do not
doing
and
it.
maybe the other one, do not let the fact that you get nervous stop you from putting your hand up.
Got to keep
Put your hand up.
to be better.
Yep, keep doing it. Okay, there's another episode done of Keeping It Real with Jack and Raoul. As usual, share it with your friends. Seriously, if you find this valuable, share it, so other people can hear us.
What am I doing?
She's positive visualizing with her eyelashes that we're getting 5-star reviews. So please don't make her look like an idiot and give us the 5-star review.
Done. Too late. Thank you, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this particular episode of Public Speaking on Keeping It Real with Jack and
Raoul.
You've been listening to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jack and Raoul. If you like what you've heard, don't forget to tell others about it and give a 5-star review. They may seem confident, but they really are sensitive 5-star needy souls. Yeah, right. Keeping It Real, created by Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan. Produced by Keehlan Ferrari-Brown. And this really real voiceover, spoken by Richard Phillips.